All
right, 6 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order. Prepare to pledge allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Maureen, could we please have roll call?
Mrs. Medina?
Here.
Mrs. Rayo?
Here.
Mr. Creams?
Here.
Mrs. Hutt?
Here.
Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mrs. Lee?
Here.
Mr. Bemmel?
Here. Thank you, Maureen. Next, we'll move on to the minutes approval.
I would make a motion that we approve the regular Board of Education meeting minutes of June 9th and the special Board of Education meeting minutes, the 2 open and 1 closed of June 23rd.
Second.
The motion is second to approve the regular Board of Education meeting minutes from June 9th and the special Board of Education meetings, 2 open and 1 closed minutes from June 23rd. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next we'll move on to comments from citizens and delegations. Looks like we have one from Gus Mancuso. Mr. Mancuso, what do you have to share with us tonight?
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight on behalf of Encourage and more importantly our community. I'm going to make some very, very brief comments, if that's possible for me to do, around 2 themes tonight. Number 1 is thanks and appreciation, and also give you a brief update as to what's been happening in our community around something that happened 2 years ago, almost to the week, when we all met at Port Edwards and began our journey with the Business Education Partnership. And I just wanted to tell you, first of all, that as a board, we certainly appreciate the fact that you've been very, very supportive of the STEM initiatives and the fact that we're trying to build awareness around the gap, skills gap, that we're closing quickly here, as well as getting the word out about a number of pieces that are in our community around the jobs that are going to be happening in the foreseeable future. So we appreciate that support, and I know that there's been an awful lot of work being done in the curriculum. We also want to thank 4 members of our Committee of the Whole, Kathy Stebbins, Eric Seiler, Ron Rasmussen, and Phil Bickelhoff have been meeting almost monthly for the last 2 years with us, along with 12 other people, talking about the initiatives that I'm going to share briefly with you tonight. Not to mention that out of the work that began 2 years ago, there are 5 subcommittees meeting as well, and many members of the Wisconsin Rapids Public School Districts are on those committees working very, very hard. The 5 are K-5, which is the curriculum. We're looking at the curriculum as to how we can design it to make it very, very relevant with real-life examples of our community, not just of STEM, but of our community. And then there's the 6-14, 14 representing the 2 years out of school, because we have a very strong partnership developing even deeper with Midstate regarding around a number of issues. Then we have the 3rd piece, which is the apprenticeship, which is new and working very, very hard. Eric Seiler's been just a super help, not only with the district here, but also building the bridges between the 4 districts. Again, for those of you that have been around here, we've been trying for 30 to 35 years since I've been here to try to get some meetings going on a regular basis at the teaching and at the curriculum level with the school districts, and all 5 school districts, including the 2 private, Assumption and Emmanuel, along with the 3 public schools up and down the river, are meeting and very, very involved in talking about those issues. So we figure, then the other 2 are the community education piece, because we know that it's not just the schools piece here to build the relationships and build the awareness of those kinds of things that are happening in our community, but we really have to work very hard at changing the language around our community, specifically manufacturing, because kids are hearing a lot of mixed messages out there regarding the downsizing that's been happening for the last 14 years. So we have a community education, and then this year we're again excited about the fact that we also have a young adults. We're targeting a lot of work between the ages of 18 and 30 in our community. We've got about 22% of our community in that range that has started school but not finished. And we've got really a gold mine in Midstate. And so we're working very hard to try to find ways to reach out and get those people back in school so that they can take advantage of their training and finish their degrees and finish getting some skill gap needs met here so that they can take these jobs that are going to be available in the very near future. So in summary, I wanted to thank everybody for that and also realize that there's an awful lot that's going to be happening. And I would like to just take a few seconds here to pass something out, and we're certainly not going to cover it tonight. It is the update and kind of building awareness with you. This is a poster that was presented in Chicago. A number of us were in Chicago in the earlier part of June at the National Workforce Solutions National Conference. As you may realize, we are one of 34 sites in the country. We are only one of 2 rural sites in the country that is been funded by the National Workforce Solutions, and we are receiving national federal grants. And a part of that has been our work associated with trying to meet the worker demand and the worker opportunity. So we're building 2 components. You know, the demand for the jobs, we're trying to create jobs, and obviously to retrain the people that have been downsized. So we are one of 2 rural sites in the country that got a chance, and for the last several years we've been sharing our best practices. And this poster was on display of the work in Southwood County, and it's also a conference in which the National Secretary of Labor spoke to us as well. So it's a fairly high-powered conference in which we were able to talk and share best practices. So in closing, I just wanted to share with you that the Business Education Partnership is much bigger, and it's wrapped around the manufacturing partnerships that's been going on around the Peer Council that's been meeting for the last 4 or 5 years. And all of these pieces here are actual accomplishments. And the one that I was referring to was the Business Education Partnership, and that's the pipeline. What we're trying to do is intentionally concentrate on making sure that when this silver tsunami on the top here hits around manufacturing, that we have a chance to put highly skilled kids from our community in those jobs, because we're focusing on that kind of training. You'll notice on the wheel up on top that currently in manufacturing, 62% of the people working in manufacturing are in the ages between 45 and 64. So we have a golden opportunity, but it's also a challenge to make sure that we're getting the word out about those jobs and making sure that our kids are aware of them and also trained for them. And so that's what's really important. I equate it to the athletic model. We have to get our kids excited about the local jobs that are going to be available here. And the earlier we start, the better we're going to be, to get kids excited about what's happening in Wisconsin Rapids in the area. So obviously, I can talk a long time just about this diagram, but I would ask you just to review it, and certainly Encourage is very willing to come back, and we want to work and deepen the partnerships that we have going on with our schools, and we are making this kind of an attempt with all of our public schools and private schools to thank them and let you know that we're very, very appreciative of the support that you're giving, and certainly the work of the people here in our district. So I could speak on and on, but I know I want to keep our public comments to about 3 minutes or so. I know I've extended that, so I will take any questions or any comments.
I guess I'd just like to say, Gus, I recently had the opportunity to be part of an interview team with NewPage, and it was refreshing to see very young faces in the crowd. We hadn't seen that for quite some time, so maybe the tide is turning. I know where I work, we just hired 3 new people, and they were all young, so it's nice to see young people being interested in manufacturing.
And we're really working very, very hard to press our local businesses to give us some projections about what jobs are going to be available. And I could share some of that information with you tonight, but it's really, we want to be sure that we get everybody in the pot, so to speak, before we start publicizing. But it's very exciting, and yet, you know, there's a challenge because we want to fill those jobs. We want to make sure that the companies are excited about the people that we're sending them. And I have a bias. You know, I think we need to really hone in on our kids and the people that grew up here first, and we want to work really hard at that because we want our kids returning. We want them to be excited about living here and working here and raising a family here, because that's what it's all about. That's why many of us in this room have stayed here. and chosen not to leave. And we've got to work on that language, and we've got to show some solidarity around it, making sure that we get out there and really push the many assets that we've got going. And that's what Encourage is all about, trying to make this community adapt to its times around our values. So again, it's great to be here. It's great to be back, and it's great to be working with our board, this one, I have to be careful, our board, and the boards across the district, and the excitement that we're generating.
And I would just like to echo what Gus said is really right on with Kathy and Ron and Phil and Eric. They have put enormous amounts of energy and time into this, and I appreciate your leadership, Kathy, in coordinating some of that. They've been very active, and they've done a really nice job.
And time doesn't permit me to list all the teachers that are out there. Just,
Yep.
I mean, they are absolute diamonds when they come to these meetings, and they're so fired up about doing this, and it's just exciting as heck. We had 18, or maybe not 18, 16 members of the district take a summer class this summer that was coordinated through UWL, and Ron and Steve, or excuse me, Rick Murden held it. And you know, we're turning the tide. We're getting people excited about what's going on, and they toured the businesses and they found out, and it was just a great response.
So they know what to talk about.
Yeah, and I hope that maybe sometime Ron can report out how exciting it was. It was really a great opportunity. So, thank you.
Thank you, John.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to committee reports, business service, John?
Thanks, John. Business services started at 6 p.m. sharp. There was no public comment since there was no public. We had 6 consent agenda items. Does anybody want anything held up? Hearing nothing, I will start with BS1, which was a interdistrict agreement with Pittsville, bringing 4 students to us. Basically, there's not much more. They're coming into the virtual program. BS2 was the heating and cooling service contract, and I would like to thank Ed for his diligence in working with Complete Control, and also thank Complete Control for maintaining the same price that they've done for the past 3 years.
3 years.
So that is very appreciated. Again, going back to what Gus said, members of the community working with the schools, and schools working with the community to make everything work out. We had a contract for 192 hours of service for $15,750, and that basically is for all of our heating and air conditioning and HVAC systems. The next item is BS3, which was a general office supply bid that was out on the appendix as far as who won what part of it, and it's bid out to multiple vendors, and then the lowest bid won those particular pieces. BS4 was the district service server purchases. Phil has talked to us in the past that basically you get 3 to maybe 4 years out of a server before they have to be replaced due to use and components and everything else. So we do have two new servers coming in for a cost not to exceed $24,000. He was expecting it to be somewhere around $22,000 to $23,000, so we don't have a final number on that yet. The servers that we did have are going to be repurposed as backup servers and used. They're not just being thrown away, but they're going to be used for data recovery or emergency recovery type system. BS5 was a district computer purchase at Rams for 35 computers at a cost of $18,550, and that basically the main purpose for those computers was for the new testing that the state requires. And we've had comments from not only us, but the public asking about the overall cost of testing this new testing system, the state, and the unfunded parts of it. And this is one of those unfunded parts. There's $18,550 for computers so that we can perform the testing. If we did not get the computers, they were telling us they'd have to go 16 straight days for 6 hours to try to get those tests in. So that probably wasn't acceptable, and it would tie up all of the other computer assets that they had. So thus we had to purchase those computers so that we can perform the testings.
And those will be used outside of just testing
Right,
as well.
it's a whole computer lab, but the main focus was for testing. And then BS6 is software purchase. We are doing a fee management system through the Skyward modules that we already have, which will make it give the ability to pay online for student fees, booking materials fees, and different fines and that type of thing. And it'll be taken out of the food service account, which right now that's where it was at with mealtime. So Julie Marie's had to take that money out and then put it back in, and it's time consuming, and this will make it more user friendly, and everything will be on Skyward. Plus it'll have a record, which is something that we hadn't had in the past. It'll give us a record that if a payment was made, when the payment was made. And so then when Mr. Rasmussen has seniors to graduate and there's fines out there, he has an easier way of finding out if they've been paid.
One bill for the whole family.
Yes, and they can pay, if you have multiple kids in the district, they're able to pay all at once on the one time. And with that, the committee recommends, and I agree, that we approve items BS1 through BS6.
Second.
Should we do roll call? Yes, probably, because we have the money out of purchases.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve BS1 through BS6 from the Business Service Committee minutes. Could we please have roll call, Maureen?
Mrs. Rayle?
Yes.
Mrs. Head?
Yes.
Mr. Krings?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Gumbo?
Yes.
Mrs. Medina?
Thank you, Maureen.
And then the balance of our meeting, we had a purchase of review for the fees for Midstate and Advanced Placement, and then AmeriCorps through Marshfield Clinic. And then the other item we had was the district vehicle purchase, of which, again, thanks Ed for going out and diligently finding a used vehicle for a salt truck. Apparently the last salt truck is rusted through, and they were putting their feet through the floorboards and kind of getting wet. So he found us a very good used truck for the purpose, basically the purpose of using the salter. Well, with that, I submit the balance of the minutes for approval.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and second to approve the meeting minutes from the Business Service Committee of July 7, 2014. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, John. We'll move on to personnel. Sandy?
Personnel met last Monday, July 7th, and from that meeting, we have one consent agenda item, but it entails everything, so I'm going to break that one item down. The committee recommends that I move to approve the following. We had retirements, one professional staff early retirement, and one support staff retirement request. In that motion, we had 4 appointments. If you look, the second one, Elizabeth Schrader, has withdrawn, so please scratch her name out. So we have 4 professional staff appointments. Then we have 1 non-represented salary support staff appointment, and we have 3 support staff appointments. And then we had 1 leave of absence request, and this is simply going from a full FTE to a 4/10 FTE, and that would be working 2 days a week, and that's just for this coming year. Does anything like to be held out by someone? Okay.
Did you make a motion?
I made a motion. I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have motion and second to approve PS1. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And with that, I move that the minutes from the July 7th meeting be approved as printed.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have motion and second to approve the minutes from the Personnel Service Committee meeting of July 7th. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Sandy. Next, we have Ed Services. Ann?
Ed Services also met last Monday on July 7th, and we had no public comment. We have 5 consent agenda items. However, we'd like to hold out ES3. Anyone have anything else you'd like to hold out? Okay. Our first item under actionable items was actually a item that we tabled. It was about Board Policy 347, Rule 1, Guidelines for the Control and Maintenance of Student Records, and 347, Exhibit, Request to Disclose Directory Information for First Reading. Colleen Dickman, who is our superintendent, reminded us that this policy was brought before us in August of 2011, and since then it has been noted that the directory data needed to be defined more clearly. I requested that under confidentiality term B, with student permission, be added to be consistent with other policies regarding adult students. And after discussion, it was requested that this item be tabled until language could be corrected on the policy and brought back to the Educational Services Committee for review and approval. Then we went on to ES2. Excuse me, wait a second here. I think I'm skipping something. No, I'm not. Okay. The Carl Perkins Grant. Kathy Stebbins-Hintz, who is our Director of Curriculum, reviewed the Carl Perkins Grant, indicating the focus for the grant will continue to be science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM education, and transition to post-secondary education and career pathways. The grant for the 2014-15 school year is $47,172. We continued on to the co-curricular code of conduct, which is what we're going to hold out. And then we went on to fuel education contract, and Kathy reviewed the fuel education contract. By contracting with fuel education rather than Edmonton, as the district has in the past, the district will realize expanded course opportunities and provide services for more students, including gifted and talented. This contract will also meet the needs of secondary virtual students, River Cities High School, LEAP, LHS, EBD, credit recovery and remediation, as well as expanded course opportunities.
Could I just, is that supposed to be Adventa?
Yeah,
It's now called Fuel Education.
but
Edmonton?
yeah,
Is that
that's what I
Adventa?
was wondering too.
Edmentum is actually the organization that
The
produces
corporation?
Play-Doh. It's the corporation that produces Play-Doh.
Oh,
So that's
okay.
why Fuel
Okay.
Education is
Okay.
replacing
Gotcha.
Edmentum
Right.
as our vendor. Does
Okay.
that make sense the way it's written?
So,
So what is it then?
Aventa is,
Aventa is what they used to call what Fuel Education.
education
used
is
to
now,
call.
they just
Oh,
switched that.
okay.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was
And
reading that right.
Edmentum is
Okay.
totally separate, that's a different company, and they're the publishers, I
Gotcha.
don't call them publishers, manufacturers of
Right.
Play-Doh.
Right, okay. Thank you.
They change names quickly and they buy each other out, and it's
Yep.
interesting, but.
And the contract with Fuel Education will be an annual cost of $22,045, and there will be an additional one-time cost for professional development of $3,250. We then went on to elementary math intervention, and Kathy explained how Do the Math will provide an intervention tool in the area of math problem solving. In addition, the training and implementation of Do the Math will enable the math interventionists to train classroom teachers in the area of problem solving and the math practice standards. And the purchase of Do the Math is at a cost of $35,700 to be paid for out of curriculum and curriculum referendum dollars. And for Do the Math implementation, training will cost $3,698 to be paid out of Title II dollars. With that, the committee recommends, and I move adoption of ES2, ES4, and ES5,
Second. This one?
What about one?
and 1.
Second.
Okay, motion is second to approve ES 1, 2, 4, and 5. Maureen, could we have roll call, please?
Mrs. Rael?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Medina?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Krings?
Yes.
Mrs. Head?
Yes.
Mr. Bembo?
Yes.
you, Maureen.
Okay, then we'll go back to ES3, which was about the co-curricular code of conduct. And Ron Rasmussen, who's principal at Lincoln, and Tracy Gittner, principal at Rams, were present to review changes to the co-curricular code of conduct. Ms. Gittner stated that changes positively show distinction between the middle school and high school students, as well as all co-curriculars, not just sports. Mr. Rasmussen shared 2 additional revisions for the eligibility rules section of the code. A sentence should be added to paragraph E as follows. D, a student becomes a 9th grader the day after his or her last day of 8th grade. Additionally, the asterisks found in the grades 8 through 12 table on page 6 can be deleted. John Bembo expressed appreciation for the work completed on the new code. And then Colleen proposed a suggested motion for the code reflecting additional changes as noted below. And I think that's where the concern.
During the initial meeting, we referenced the asterisks in that grade 8 to 12 table on page 6. We also noticed in the interim that there are some of the days that are mismarked. In other words, we have 10 scheduled days, it should be 15. And it's a matter of following WIA rules and regulations for grades 8 through 12. So we would simply, I sort of took the motion that you had, gave it to you, and just added some wording to incorporate that change also needs to happen. It was on a page that looked like this. And some of the days are just mismarked, and we just caught that looking at it one more time. So we just have to modify that, and you might say, well, it's a typo. Well, we just wanted to bring it through, as long as we're addressing that tonight anyway. So, thank you.
Well, okay.
So this, we would ask that this would take the place of the motion.
Okay.
It incorporates everything except that first paragraph is a little bit different.
Okay.
And that's simple, so it's identical to the one you had last week, other than the first paragraph, which would identify the change I just spoke about. And it's underlined.
With that, then I'd make a motion, again, to approve the adoption of the recommended revisions to the WRPS Co-Curricular Code of Conduct effective July 14th, 2014, to include the 2 additional revisions noted by Mr. Rasmussen at the Educational Services Committee on July 7th of 2014, and also to include changing the grades 8 to 12 academic eligibility overview chart on page 6 to have the number of days listed in progress report 1 and 3 to 15 instead of 10, 9th to 14th, and 11th to 16th, and with the understanding that code violations occurred through July 13th, 2014 will be dealt with according to the co-curricular code regulations effective on that date. Code violations occurring on the or after July 14th, 2014 will be dealt with in accordance with the revised co-curricular code of conduct adopted by the Board of Education on July 14th of 2014. And in moving from the current co-curricular code to the revised code effective July 14th of 2014, one-time exception to the second paragraph on the revised code in section 5, guidelines for minimum penalties, categories 1 and 2, which states code violations are cumulative throughout a student career, grades 6 through 8 career, and then grades 9 through 12 career. Notes 1, a student has 3 strikes out of their grades 6 through 8 career, and then again at their grades 9 through 12 career, will be made as follows. Any student with strikes in their 6 through 8 or 9 through 12 career will have 1 strike automatically removed from their cumulative record, but only after the penalty has been served.
Second. The longest motion ever.
Yeah, really.
We have a motion and a
Could you read that
second.
again?
We have a motion and a second to accept the altered co-curricular code of conduct as noted here. Could you please have a roll call, Maureen?
Mrs. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Head?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Medina? Yes. Mrs. Rayo?
Yes.
Mr. Bembo?
Yes.
Mr. Tracy?
Yes, and thank you for not making me read that whole thing.
And I'd also like to add, again, I did thank them when they were here, but there was a lot of people that did a lot of work to redefine this and to not just include athletics, but everything that we do as far as co-curriculars to be included, which was very important to me because I figured all people should be under the same code. So that was very thankful of all the work that people have done, because I think we had brought it up 2 years ago maybe that we started, and it was actually started before that, but brought it up at a board meeting 2 years ago.
Okay, and then we went on to updates, and Colleen updated us on the homeless grant, which the district wasn't given a homeless grant this year. And in fact, only 11 out of 17 applications were funded for the 2014-15 school year. In homeless student situations, the district is required to provide transportation and school supplies to students. Discussion on what is considered reasonable regarding transportation was discussed, and Ms. Dickman explained that this is monitored closely. Transportation costs can be paid for through title funding. There is some concern how the homeless liaison salary will be covered without this grant, and Business Services is looking into this. Sandy had asked if the district had a list of unfunded mandates such as this, so that when meeting with state representatives, this can be discussed. It was agreed that a list should be started. So with that, the committee recommends, and I move that we accept the minutes of the July 7th Educational Services Committee meeting.
Second.
Okay, motion is second to approve the regular committee meeting minutes of the Ed Services Committee of July 7th. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we move on to agenda referrals, information requests.
Well, can we request, as Gus had mentioned, that Ron give us an update on his involvement in that committee?
Anything else?
Just to clarify, you mean the course that was taught this summer?
Or the course, yeah,
Okay.
the course, right. Thank you.
Definitely.
Okay. Legislative agenda.
Well, I pulled up the legislative update. There wasn't a lot on there, but there was one thing that I thought was kind of interesting, so I'll just let you know about it. It says, well, this marks the third straight year state general aid to Wisconsin public schools is projected to increase. The overall level of state aid remains below what public school districts received before state aid was cut dramatically in the 2011-13 state budget. A recent study by the Washington, D.C. based Center on Budget and Policy Priorities found that Wisconsin has made the second deepest cuts in per-student K-12 education spending in the nation since 2007-2008, second only to Alabama. Compared with 2007-2008, spending per pupil in Wisconsin was down $1,038 for the school year just ended. Alabama cut per pupil spending by $1,242 during that same period. According to the study, Wisconsin 2013-14 spending per pupil is 15.3% lower than in 2007-2008, making it among 14 states where per pupil spending remains at least 10% lower than before the economic recession. I thought that was kind of interesting.
I wonder how much they're looking about during the upcoming elections.
Yeah, not much.
All right. Next, we can move on to the bills. Thank you.
Okay, I would make a motion that the receipts be noted and the bills be paid as printed.
If you look on page 49, and you look at the very top, the state of Wisconsin, and you see permit to operate fee, I believe that is just a fee we pay to the state to have elevators. It does not check their safety, that's something else. It's just a fee we pay to the state because we have elevators. So once more, it's just,
And we have to have them.
we have to have that, I guess.
How often do they inspect our elevators then?
Annually.
But
And
this
he does
isn't-
He does a check, but we also have a vendor that pretty much keeps them.
But isn't this a fee just to the
That's just
state
a fee
because we have
Yep.
elevators?
So that can go on that list.
Which we have to have if you have multiple
We have to
stories.
have, right, but I mean,
Sounds like an
it's just,
unfunded mandate
does
that
the
we could put
state
on the
really need
list.
this money every year from us because we have an elevator? It
No.
doesn't do anything for the safety of the elevators or anything else, it's just
It doesn't pay.
There's one
More
we can add to
money
the
from
list
us for the state.
our
I
legislature.
think we probably get a nice laminated certificate to tape inside the elevator for that $200.
Well, then
I
that's.
don't see it laminated, John.
I mean, I just think this is something else we gotta keep in line with our legislators.
I would agree.
Okay.
So that should be added to the list.
I'll second your motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the bills and pay them as noted. Please have roll call.
Mrs. Medina? Yes. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Rayo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Yes,
Mr. Frings?
Yes.
Mr. Bembo?
Yes.
Mrs. Head?
Oh, yeah. Hesitant on that one.
Thanks, Maureen. New business, I guess we have nothing tonight?
No, we don't.
Okay, and then if we look at our calendar, it doesn't look like we meet again till August 4th for the committee meeting. So,
We'll try to keep it that way, but you never know.
unless something comes up, so with that, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.